My name is Shane Storks. I am your Event Supervisor for Crime Busters, which is coming back this year. So this event's kind of intimidating. I'm going to try to make it less intimidating, give you something to start with. Basically, what your kids are going to do is they're going to have fun feeling like they're forensic scientists on TV. They're going to play around with different sorts of techniques that forensic scientists use that are totally safe, totally fun, perfect for elementary kids. I'm going to give them an example PG crime scene. They're going to get a bunch of evidence from it. I divided it into 4 parts. Part A, they're going to get powders. Part B, they're going to get ink samples. Part C, they're going to get finger, shoe, and tire prints. Part D, they're going to get something students will not know about beforehand. They're going to complete the parts in no specific order. You'll get them all at once on the test. And you're going to implicate no more than 2 suspects for the crime that I give them. For supplies for this event, on the rule sheet it gives lots of details on supplies. You can bring a note sheet that's 2-sided, 8.5 by 11. We will check that in, just write whatever you want on it pretty much. Just one sheet for both of your 2 students. You can bring a magnifying glass, 1 for each student. So to be clear, you can bring in 2 magnifying glasses, but 1 note sheet. Yep. All right, so we'll talk about the first part, and that's powder identification. You have to know how to tell apart 10 powders. The first part of the test, your kids are going to get 6 different cups of powders. The first cup is going to be cup A, we'll label it. It's going to be the powders recovered from the crime scene. And the other 5 are going to be powders recovered from suspects that we're going to make up. One of the 5 suspect cups is going to match exactly the contents of the cup from the crime scene. And in those cups, I can mix up to 3 powders. The powders, I have a big list here. It's Alka-Seltzer, which you'll have to crush up, baking soda, cornstarch, flour, gelatin, granulated and powdered sugar, and salt, yellow cornmeal, and yeast. Those are all of the powders you're going to get, no surprises there. So yeah, what your goal is to identify each of the powder in each of the cups, then determine who did the crime based on the powders. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that they're going to get 6 cups with powders in them, and each cup can hold up to a mixture of 3 powders?
Yes. What she asked is each cup, it'll be a mixture of 3 powders.
Okay.
Yes. And
so how do you know which ones, will the cups be labeled, the ones recovered and the ones from the suspects?
yeah, they will all be labeled. One will be labeled A, that'll be the one from the crime scene. And the rest will be labeled 1 through 5. Those will be the ones from the suspects.
Oh, okay, 1 through 5 are from suspects.
Yes, and
Okay,
that's sort
A
of
is
how.
recovered, okay.
That is sort of how the whole test is going to be set up. I'm going to give you 1 sample from the crime scene, 5 samples, 1 from each suspect.
Can the cups contain less than 3 powders?
The cups can contain less than 3
Okay,
powders.
so
3
any
powders is a
mixture-
challenging one. It's
Yeah.
up to 3
Up to
powders.
3.
Up to, okay, great.
Yes.
So is there a story that goes along, a storyline of some sort, or is that, we're just trying to match what's in cup A with one of the 5 suspects?
Question is there a story to go along with the test? There will be a story. There will be a theoretical crime I'm going to make up.
Okay.
It's going to be totally appropriate for your 4th and 5th graders, don't worry. And yeah, it will follow a storyline, which is part of what makes it so fun. It actually has a story to it. A few things I want to mention. In practices, I would recommend that you start by just experimenting on all the powders, playing around with them, adding water, vinegar, iodine, looking at them up close, magnifying glass. You might even want to consider characteristics that I don't mention on this handout that you might notice, something special about the powder that you noticed. And maybe make a table out of that, put it on the note sheet that you can bring in. And some things I mentioned, I'm not going to be totally unreasonable mixing the powders up. I know there's a ton of white powders that I'm giving you, and if I mix all those up, that's kind of impossible to deal with. So,
So it won't be like that challenging.
yeah, I'll be reasonable. I've been in your position before. I'm not going to make it super challenging, super terrible and unreasonable. I'm going to challenge them, but I'm not going to be unreasonable. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Some things I noted on the bottom here, I'm not going to mix cornstarch or granulated sugar, not going to mix baking soda and Alka-Seltzer in the same cup. And that's just because,
Reactions.
yeah, same ingredients and similar reactions. You're not going to learn anything from that. That's all I have to say about that. If there are any more questions, we'll hold them till the end, if that's okay. Part B is chromatography. Chromatography is a really intimidating word. This is probably the hardest part to know how to do on the test. Chromatography is how forensic scientists tell apart ink from different pens. Now, what you can do is if you have pens, you write with them on a special piece of paper like filter paper, a coffee filter, and you put it in rubbing alcohol. It actually traces a really unique design of the paper, and it lets you tell the ink apart. So on the test, that's what it's going to look like. You have sample B is this first dash on the bottom. That's the pen, that's the ink that I recovered from the crime scene. Now, 1 through 5 are inks from the suspects. One of these ink samples has to match the first one. And it's also worth mentioning, I can implicate 2 suspects for the crime. So there could be 2 samples that match. Only 2. I won't do more than that.
So with the inks, then you're having them put iodine on them, you're having, like, I'm sorry,
Okay, this is a separate part from the iodine. The
Okay.
iodine we're only gonna use on the powders. So,
So how are you encouraging the kids then to match those up? Just with magnifying glasses, with?
well, I give them a piece of paper that looks like this. And if they suspend this bottom edge in rubbing alcohol, which I'll give them materials to do that, it's going to trace a really unique design off the paper.
Okay.
And then they can tell the different samples apart.
Okay. So that's with rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, there's a video on the event page online. It's under the supplementary study material, something like that. It will give you an idea. It won't look exactly like this, but it'll give you an idea of what's going on.
So the kids don't have to put the ink on the paper themselves?
No,
Either.
they'll
Okay.
get something that looks similar to that.
All
Yep.
in one piece?
Yep, one piece. And like I said on the test, I'll give them the materials to suspend the paper in the alcohol, but they'll have to do that part themselves. I'll give them the rubbing alcohol in a container of some sort, and they'll be expected to put it in there.
And you said that type of paper is like a filter paper?
Yeah, you can also use coffee filters.
Okay.
If you just cut squares out of the middle, that'll work just the same.
Okay.
And I use the flat part because it will kind of mess up the design if you use like the wavy part. Okay, and I think that is all I have to say about chromatography. Again, questions we'll hold to the end about them. Part C is going to be fingerprints, tire prints, shoe prints. This is pretty straightforward. I'm going to give a tire print, a shoe print, and a fingerprint that's recovered from the crime scene, and I'll give the same for all the suspects, and you'll have to match them up. Now, the thing is, I can present the fingerprints or tire prints, shoe prints in any way that I choose. So I could give you a photo of a shoe print in like mud. It will be clear. I'm not, again, being reasonable. But it can be a variety. It might not be just a flat shoe print on a piece of paper. That makes sense? And again, you'll have plenty of time to experiment with it. Just be creative. It'll be more fun the more creative you are. I think that's, again, all I have to say about the prints. Part D is unspecified evidence, which for some of you might be the scariest because you really can't practice for it. It's basically, you're not prepared for it. It's a type of evidence that is matching like the rest of them, but it's not something that I'm telling you about. It could be, for example, a handwriting sample. I could give a handwriting sample from the crime scene, like someone wrote on the wall graffiti, and then a handwriting sample from each of the suspects. You have to match that up. So no matter what it is, it'll be a matching format. That part could have 2 pieces of unspecified evidence, 1 or 2. Again, be creative. Don't be afraid to challenge your students. It's more fun the more creative you are for them. Then the last part, from all these parts A through D, you're going to have identified a person who did it based on those specific pieces of evidence. Like, suspect 2's fingerprints were at the crime scene. Suspect 1's ink was at the crime scene. You're going to implicate someone in each part. Part E, you're going to choose at the end who did the crime, who committed the crime.
By putting it all together.
Yep, just piece the whole thing together. And again, that can be up to 2 suspects that get implicated. And that's pretty much the setup of the test. All the parts will be presented at the same time on a lab desk. Both of your students will stand at it and they can choose the order they want to go in. And I'm sure you guys can strategize and figure out what way is best for you. Time will count, sort of. It's a tiebreaker. If 2 teams tie and score, whoever finished first will place higher, 1 place higher. All the answers will be on a single answer sheet. All of the fingerprints and the unspecified evidence are going to be in separate packets I'll give them. So they'll have 1 piece of paper that they have to worry about. And they also have to hand in the chromatography paper. That's all that I get from them.
Is it a Scantron or just a fill-in?
No Scantron, just fill in. And let's see, test is out of about 100 points. I don't know if it'll be exactly that, but it'll be close to that. Most points will be given for part A, then second most part B. Part C through E will be third most, and they'll have about the same. And last thing, I think, you're not going to receive the original testing materials if you're participating in a mock competition. I'm going to give you a score sheet that tells you how well your students did in each part of the test. That's kind of because it's a lab table full of a bunch of materials. It's kind of hard to give you that as like a test. I can't give you the test really. So it's probably most helpful to you to just tell you how your students did in each part. And it's definitely worth mentioning lab safety rules are very important. I need you guys to bring in OSHA approved lab safety goggles. They're the ones that cover your eye and mask it. They're splash proof, not just the safety glasses. And you're going to need those. On the rule sheet, it lists everything you need, no surprises.
So where's a good place to get those?
Home Depot usually has them, those kind of stores. Your school will likely provide them for you though.
Right.
So that's kind of my thinking.
The problem with the hard, the ones we buy locally is they're almost always adult size.
Oh yeah, that's true.
All of a sudden, put my kid in.
And lastly, check the Crime Busters page at macomso.org for anything I may put up. Some things I'm thinking about putting up are example fingerprints and tire prints and shoe prints that I've already made for you to kind of practice with.
Are there any example stories available for like the first one you were saying, just to kind of get them accustomed to what to?
I don't know if I'll give any online, but actually we are holding a workshop. The information for that is on the first page, on the front page. That is going to give you some examples, an example story. It'll probably be in the format of a test run of the event where I'll give you feedback, we'll do it all together. So if you have any worries or doubts about how you're teaching the event, they'll be cleared up there.
Is there limited space in that? It's like a limited school district, right?
Mike, do you know, is there limited space at the workshop? How much space are we dealing with?
We're at the ISD, right?
Yes.
No, that's why we're asking if they sign up, but we're not keeping track.
Okay, yeah, another thing to mention, you can pre-register online for the workshop. That gives us an idea of how much supplies we should have, so we'd appreciate it if you did.
I registered this morning, and all it is you put your team number, your name, and your email address, and you're registered.
Yep.
There's nothing hard on.
Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say, so I guess I'll turn it over to everyone for questions, see how much sense I made. Yes.
If we have specific questions that come up, is there a way to re-choose specifically, or are we allowed to do that, or what do you recommend?
If you, could you repeat the question,
If
please?
we had questions as we are practicing with our children, and we have questions that come up, let's say questions that they pose, how can we direct them, and is there a way for us to reach you directly?
Yes, so the question was, if you're practicing and you have a question that comes up that you didn't think of today, you can always go online to the event page. There's a frequently asked questions page that you can ask questions to me. I will answer them.
So what happens is the answer to that gets publicized to everybody.
Yes.
So everybody sees the answer, they see every question that was asked, and everybody sees the answer. And that applies not just to this event, but to every event.
Yeah, so the question and the answer will be put online. More questions?
I'm just kind of making a running list of what I'm gonna need. Is there a list of suggested supplies or just based on what we're talking about?
If you go online, the question is there like a suggested list of supplies that you need for the event? If you go online to the event page, you can find the Quick Start Kits insert. I heard they're sold out now, but it does say everything that comes in the kit, so that'll give you most of what you need. It also says what the kit doesn't include, so you'll know what you still need to get.
Are you guys gonna be selling the kits at the workshop anymore, or no?
The question is, are we selling kits at the workshop? We're not sure about that yet. We'll put something online about that soon. I don't think we were really expecting them all to sell out so fast.
What's something related to that? They've collected a few email addresses at the desk where the kits were available. So if you think you wanted a kit, put your email in there. And the big thing is somehow we have to try to gauge how much demand there is. Do we need 100 more kits or what? So go up there and pound your fist on the table and say, how did you guys let this happen? And leave your email address, and we'll figure out what to do.
On the chromatograph, is it gonna be just ink pens or markers as well?
The question is for chromatography, are ink pens the only ink you'll see, or could there be markers? Any type of ink is fair game. I would suggest just experiment with it, because it looks cool when you do it.
It does.
The kids will have fun doing it. Just experiment with any kind of ink you can think of. That's what I'll be doing too, and we'll see what comes up there. Yes?
So for the powder section, these powders will be presented to the kids in little cups? And then my next question would be then, will there be spoons if they're not allowed to touch the powder? Are there spoons and et cetera that they would transfer to create the reaction? Is there like a different reaction place?
The question is, are there going to be spoons or supplies provided to transfer the powders in the cups to other places to do the reactions? I'm going to give you, at the minimum, toothpicks. I'm going to give you extra plastic cups that you can pour some of your powder into if you'd like to do a test there separately. I don't mind if you pour some on black paper and do the test there, put some iodine on it on the black paper. That doesn't matter to me. I will clean up after all of it. But I am thinking about giving you spoons or popsicle sticks or something just to make it a little easier.
Because you can't smell it or sniff it or
Right.
do any of that.
I do not want them going out of their way to sniff it. Some of them you can obviously smell, so don't worry about sniffing it. Yeah.
Will you be providing the little black squares of paper?
Yes, I will be providing the black squares of paper. Each cup will have its own black square of paper, is what I'm planning. Yep.
Any need for droppers or pipettes?
Droppers or pipettes, I would suggest using them in practice. Like in the Quick Start kit, we had 3 droppers, one for each of the liquids, water, vinegar, iodine. It's definitely going to be easier than trying to pour from a whole bottle. For practice, I would suggest trying to get something like that.
But something like that will be available also during the competition?
Yes. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it, but it will be a small amount that you get to drop in carefully.
Okay.
Definitely. More questions? Yep.
Says they will be given materials to suspend the paper and alcohol for the chromatography. Is that shown online too, how that's done?
Actually, yes. If you want to see how you set up chromatography, if you look at the insert from the Quick Start Kit, there are some diagrams there. It will kind of show you pretty much exactly what you need to do. And I'll definitely give your kids instructions at the competition on how to do it, because I might change the way, it might be different from the way you've been doing it in practice.
Even though there's no quick start kits available, everything would be online still, the diagrams, will they be online or just in the kits themselves?
Yes, the diagrams and the whole insert, the whole piece of paper in the kit, we have online too. Yes. Any more questions? Yeah.
I see you can have a piece of paper with your notes on it at the event, is that correct?
Yes.
So kind of like when you were in school, you had a cheat sheet. Just throwing everything possibly you could fit on that sheet, is that
Yes, you get a cheat sheet, 8.5 by 11, both sides, only one for your two kids. So you bring one in together. That's probably something you'll work on in practices too.
What do you recommend that they put in there? The little diagrams of possible results? Like when they build charts and reactions and things like that?
I would recommend definitely on your cheat sheet, you'd want to put probably like a table of all the reactions, maybe other things you notice about the powder. The table usually works really well,
Yeah,
doing a table.
characteristics and things
And
of
then
that
any
nature.
other notes you want, just put them on there. Yes.
Does it have to be handwritten notes, or can they glue like a little chart in?
I'd rather not have anything glued on your cheat sheet, rather have it handwritten or typed. Yes.
I know some events, it was suggested that when students, concentrate on one part of the test while another student concentrates on another, what would you suggest with this, that they work together or they divide and conquer?
All right, so the question is, should students divide and conquer the test, or should they work together? Now, I always want to say that kids should just work together the whole time, because that's what makes it fun, but that might not be realistic for your team. There might be one part that one kid's better at, really good at, and maybe the other kid's really good at fingerprints. So I just suggest figuring it out in practice. You'll figure out what each kid is good at, and if they work well together, or
Depends on them personality-wise.
yeah, you'll be able to strategize once you meet your kids, once you know how they work together.
And they can complete the whole, I guess, sorry, I was picturing more of like a station setup, being timed, if they're getting the whole kit in front of them. And they
Yes.
move as fast as they can get through all 5 components.
Yeah, on the
Okay.
test, every part's presented at once on the same
Okay.
table.
And they can go to any part they want
Yeah.
first?
They're just
and-
both gonna be standing at the desk, and the parts will be spaced out,
Okay.
labeled.
And they just decide whatever they want to work on.
Yep, so that's another thing you can decide in practice, is what part maybe you wanna do first, or what part you should save for the end. Another thing I should mention is I don't mind if students talk to each other quietly. I don't want them purposely distracting other students though. Just use your judgment, be nice. Any more questions?
How long did I have?
Your students will have 30 minutes to complete the test. Some of that could be taken up by me giving instructions, that sort of thing, but we'll probably finish it in like 20 minutes, so don't worry too much. I know, it's hard not to worry when you're in this position. I've been in that position. It's a lot of work, but they'll have a lot of fun. It's not too hard for them. They can handle anything. They're really smart kids. You guys feel ready? Feel better? Think you can get started? Anyone totally lost? It's good. And any more questions?
When I was looking online, it said new coaches should go to the tips session, but I didn't see a time for that.
The tip session was actually ran in the media center. I don't have a schedule on me, so I'm not sure if it's still
They're all
running.
on. There was the third session was about an hour ago.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't find it, but that was kind of, okay, that's fine.
Just ask for advice from your head coach if you're worried, but you'll be able to figure it out. It's just,
Okay.
you'll all learn together. That's kind of how this event goes.
You don't want to.
It's not too much of a study event, it's not too much of a hands-on event where you need a lot of skill to do it. It's just experiment and figure it out, learn it. It's fun. Thank you.
guys.